I am so excited to see so many beautiful faces. Fellow midlifers, I'm sure, that are interested in learning a little bit more about that pesky thing called inflammation that seems to happen to a lot of us as we age. Shoot me a little, drop me in the chat if you think you are dealing with inflammation. Yes, or if you're just trying to learn more about it in case it is something that you encounter. I'd like to know like where everybody is in their, in their journey with this. Because I think there's a lot of like misunderstanding about what it is and what it looks like when it happens to a midlife woman. So we're going to talk a lot about it. All right, Therese says, yes, I think I have it and I want to learn more. All right, Lena says definitely have inflammation. I love it. Definitely do. I think it's one of those things that a lot of us in midlife, we don't realize that it's happening. Many of us we don't even know it's a thing in midlife, and we don't realize how many things it's connected to with our health. I don't know why I look so dark. I'm really not that tan. Okay. All right, so I'm going to kick it off in just a minute. I am so excited that my friend and someone who I consider a mentor as well on my own health journey and also with my business is on this call. So I'm going to introduce Leanne Dunson in a minute, but just to help you understand exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight, what is inflammation? Why it's happening to us in midlife specifically. And there are different types of inflammation that we're going to touch on. What it looks like how it can present itself when you have it, some things you can do to check and confirm you are dealing with it. We're going to talk about more specifically how we can address it. There are things that we can do as midlife women. Remember, we are not victims here. We are not victims of menopause, aka meno hell, that I usually call it. We can take charge of our health. We can feel, we can look our best. We're going to talk about the things that we can do to address it. And there's a number of things that we can do to address it. So, and then I'm going to do a giveaway. I have to remember, don't let me forget at the end. If you guys have, you guys have followed me for a while, you know I'm a big fan of Saint makeup, which is the best makeup for mature skin. So I'm going to be giving away a little, it's like a summer set of makeup for you guys with some stuff in there. This will be filled too. And then I'm going to give you my favorite brush. So we'll pick a winner at the end of the call. Now, I want you guys to know that like I want this to be interactive. This is why doing this via Zoom I feel like is better in a lot of ways than the old way. Like did anyone here does anyone remember the IG live series that I used to do, Let's Rock Midlife? Did you guys ever watch any of them where I had expert guests on to talk about different topics? Did anybody see any of those? I love doing them on Instagram Live. One of the downsides of doing it that way is really the only way to interact was like if you typed in your question and then I had to read it. I didn't know who I was talking to. So we want to make sure that we save some time at the end for you to ask specific questions. If you are not on mute, can you please make sure that you mute yourselves as you come in? Um, and that way, like if you have specific questions, I do want to say this, like, this is an educational call. Leanne and I are going to be sharing our experience, what has happened to us, what has worked for us, what we see working well for women, like in the community that she and I both, work in with midlife women. It's not medical advice. I don't want anyone to take what we say tonight and say, like, oh, this is medical advice. Every person is different. And hopefully you have a good doctor, which I know can be hard to find these days. Okay, so let me go ahead and introduce Leanne Dunson. Leanne is a former registered nurse. She's gonna share a little bit more about her story a little bit later in the call and like her own journey with inflammation. But she's a former registered nurse and worked in like traditional healthcare for a number of years and then decided maybe there are some better ways to do things and became an integrative practitioner. She's also a hormone and fat loss coach. Leanne, anything else you want to add to your amazing CV?
Oh, I've worn many hats, many hats. I've been in the health and wellness business for over 23 years. So I've worn many hats during that time, started off as like into the holistic nutrition side too, but really just wanted to make a difference. And I always say, as I've kind of like gone on this path, I've worn the hats as, like Jen was saying, like trying to get a good doctor and all that in this time in our life can be really, really hard. So that's what actually got me into the practitioner side and to learn like blood work, to learn like to figure out why they were saying I was normal but I didn't feel normal. So like I said, I've worn many hats, been around in this business for a long time, but this last couple of years has really lit me up, and it's because I had my own aha moment too. And that led me to be able to help thousands of other women have their aha moment and turn the light switch back on for them. And I say what my favorite way that I like to say is we snatched back our sexy. And that's what I did here at 56 and started really honing in on that at 54. And I can say right now, at 56, I just told my daughter this like 2 weeks ago. I said, I was going back, like, I feel so good right now that it's like a crazy thing. Like, I feel like I'm like being preserved, like I'm not aging. And my daughter says she likes to go back to my old pages and she's like, you've had like this glow up, but it's all been because of finding the right tools. And that's what I'm excited in reducing inflammation in my body. Like, as Jen said, that's been the biggest key. And I think even as a practitioner, it is something that we weren't like talked about. We weren't even like taught so much as about like always just focusing on the inflammation, but to the inflammation of what happens to women as we all are in here in our midlife, and we're in midlife and we have that estrogen that's decline. And the thing is with estrogen is it plays such a role in regulating our immune system. And it's something that we don't know. We just think, oh, it's estrogen. These, we have these female hormones. We have estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And they just like regulates like, how we feel, but it also plays a big role in your age, our estrogen's declining. We're like, why do I feel puffy? Why am I working out 6 days a week and I still feel puffy? I don't see muscle definition. Like, what's going on here? And a lot of it has to do with inflammation. So, what I found through my own journey and now through thousands of other women is that when I can reduce inflammation in a woman's body, like that's when everything starts to fall into place. That's when your hormones start working better. Even if when you're on HRT and you're like, I still don't feel great. I'm on HRT because we haven't addressed inflammation. You can take all the hormones, you can replace with estrogen, but until we are like narrowing in, we're going, okay, we're going to focus on that inflammation part. That's when you start seeing the difference. And inflammation is not always like a bad thing. And it can be, we want a little bit of inflammation, inflammation. Like I had just had a surgery done, like I needed a little bit of inflammation to help heal my body. So we want that inflammation. If you cut yourself, you want a little inflammation, that's what's going to help heal. But the problem is when inflammation stays around too long and then it starts to like, not just that little, the scratch that you had that needed to be fixed, it starts spreading throughout your whole body. And when that starts happening, that's when we start noticing we'll start dealing with insulin resistance. You start having aches and pains in your body. You start having issues with histamine reactions, immune system. And that's what we don't want. So that's when we really have to find, the right tools. And it's just not one. It's finding the right tools and putting them in our toolbox to really becoming fully optimized. And that's the key. And you'll hear me saying that all the time is the key is to become fully optimized. And that is that we're optimizing our nutrition. We are optimizing building muscle. We are optimizing our hormones. So it's all about that big picture. And part of that, we cannot do any of that until we actually address the inflammation.
Yeah. And there's actually a term for it. Inflammaging is a
Yes.
term, which is, it's that low grade persistent inflammation that starts to develop as we get older. And it affects our immune system greatly, which is problematic for us because we want a vibrant, healthy, strong immune system to keep our bodies functioning on all cylinders. And inflammaging is a big problem for us as we get older. So, okay, perfect. So thank you for that. And by the way, Leanne is also a grandmother. How many
Yeah.
grandbabies do you have?
I have four, and that's why they're not used to. I have two that are in town right now, and they just walked in.
Mhm.
So they do not understand that Lolly does this like zooms that they just think I'm sitting here. So if you hear a little like Lolly, that's my other little one that's running around here. And
Yeah.
I've got four dogs running around here too.
Yeah. So Leanna's goals, we all want to be like thriving the way she is with four grandkids and looking as amazing and just being on top of her health. So we definitely want to hear like all the things that you're doing, all the things that you have done. Okay. So we talked about what inflammation is. Acute inflammation can be really good. Long-term chronic inflammation, that's when we start to have a problem. Let's touch a little bit more on exactly why it's happening. So we know that estrogen is immunoprotective, and as we're getting older and estrogen is declining, that is showing up as inflammation in the body. There's other things that are contributing to inflammation as we age. So a lot of you, I'm sure you've heard this statistic about once you hit the age of 30, the rate of muscle loss that you start to have as you age. And that's why it's so important. I mean, if you're here, it's probably because you follow me and you know that I talk about and Leanne talks about all the time the importance of weight training, lifting weights, because loss of muscle is also protective to our body. So loss of muscle can also lead to that chronic inflammation that we're talking about. We also tend to see, and there's a direct relationship between if your muscle is declining, your body fat percentage, your visceral fat is increasing. That is inflammatory. So having a higher body fat percentage can also lead to more of that inflammation. And you are also going to potentially see, I don't know if anyone here has seen changes in their blood work as they've gone through menopause. Has anyone noticed like we hear it all the time. I'm doing all the same things. Leanne's going to talk about this. I'm doing all the right things and my A1C is creeping up, or, my glucose is all of a sudden I'm insulin resistant. Like, what the heck? How is this happening? All of these pieces fit together. If your stress, it's not even just that your stress is higher, although I don't know about you guys, but I do feel like for some reason there's way more stress going on in my life at 55 than I ever thought. Like I thought, oh, as we get older, life is just going to be calm and relaxing, and we'll just coast along. And I don't feel that way at all. I feel like there are more things that stress me out, but a lot of that is because our bodies are simply not as resilient. We're not as resilient and capable of handling stress the way that we were when we were younger. And a lot of that is due to the decline in our hormones. Um, Progesterone is declining. And so we are noticing that our sleep is not as good. Anyone noticing that they're not sleeping as long? They're waking up in the middle of the night. All of those things contribute to this inflammation. Yes, cholesterol jumped for Annette. That's another one that a lot of women will see. And then your doctor's like, oh, we're going to put you on a statin. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but there may be some other ways to address rising cholesterol that might potentially work better, might have fewer side effects. Our gut health is changing. Like estrogen affects our gut microbiome. And as estrogen declines, midlife women, like I've had doctors on with me, and I know Leanne has talked to many too, who will tell you if you're a midlife woman, there is a 99% chance that you've got some sort of gut dysbiosis going on. And I notice it too. Like maybe it's a change. Maybe all of a sudden you feel more bloated when you eat. Maybe you've got more loose stools than what you had before. Maybe you're not going as frequently. You're dealing with constipation. Like these can all be things that are related, right? That are related to that. So I want you to remember, like, well, let's talk a little bit about how it shows up. And Leanne, I want you to tell your story because we did touch on like these are the things that you can be doing, right? You want to be building your muscle.
Mhm.
HRT is another one that you can lean into that can help with inflammation, right?
Mhm.
When you can get that estrogen up with HRT, you will tend to see, better inflammation markers. You want to prioritize protein. Nutrition's so important too, right? We want to stay away from inflammatory, highly processed foods. We want to prioritize our protein. We talked a little bit about sleep, managing stress, but I want Leanne to talk about how she was doing all of those things and what did help move the needle for her.
Yeah, so like Jen said, I was doing all the things I like I told you, I've been in this business for a long time. I know nutrition. I was when macros came out, I was one of the first macro coaches. I wrote guides, books on it. And I will say I was doing all that. I knew that I wore CGM. And I sat in my doctor's office, my functional medicine doctor's office, which I had been going to for the last 9 years. Sat in her office. I'd done blood work previous. She walked in, she looked at me, and then she walked out and she walked back in. And I was like, okay, what? That was weird. And she goes, Leanne, I had to walk out to make sure I grabbed the right chart. And I was looking at the right chart. She said, because I know you and this blood work does not match up to your lifestyle. And I was like, okay, what's going on? And she said, we've noticed a jump, you're jumping up in your A1C. And at that time, I was a 5.9. And that like got me like it woke me up too because I have to tell you my grandmother had dementia and my grandmother sat in with that pre-diabetic state for so many years and I remember it as even being in my 20s and early 30s as she was sitting in that and then all of a sudden got dementia. So that was like a red flag for me. And then and at the time, I will tell you, I tried berberine. I even was prescribed metformin and I tried it one time and it made me feel so horrible. And it actually can make you not feel as strong in the gym too. So I was like, okay, I don't want to do any of that. And at the time, I had already had been working with clients in my practice with using a low dose of a GLP-1 along with my doctor that was in my program. And so I thought, you know what? I don't really fit the criteria of like the losing the weight and all that. So I decided though, after talking to him, I'm like, I need to do something. And as the research showed that that's the fastest way to actually reduce that inflammation. And my pancreas needed a support. So as we are aging, losing estrogen, our hormones are adjusting, that's when that insulin resistance starts popping in. And you can start noticing those numbers going up. And that's also to do with that inflammation that we were talking about. So I decided to start using, at the time, microdosing word wasn't even, brought up at that time, started doing a low dose of a GLP-1. At that time, it was semaglutide because that's all we had access. We didn't have tirzepatide. Used a very small amount. Within 2 weeks, I felt like a different person. I started noticing that I felt very like evened out, very calm. And it's because when dealing with insulin resistance, I had some blood sugar dysregulation that was going on also. And I felt really good. And then I started noticing that the puffiness that I felt puffy, that started going away. And then after we rechecked, months and months later, I was down to 5.1 A1C. And that's the only thing that worked. And at that point, I realized I needed to talk to more people about this because it's not just about using a GLP-1 for weight loss. At the time, I did not do it for weight loss. I'm really glad I actually lost 11 pounds with it, but that was just showing that my body was holding on so much inflammation in my body, and it was just a very slow release. It wasn't really fast, but my body needed it. And I started seeing all the hard work I started putting. I started noticing my muscle definition again, that puffiness in my belly. I had 4 kids, and never once had weight gain around my belly, and I started having weight gain around my belly. And that started going away. So I've now helped thousands of other women do the same thing and get from that stuck that they're laying the foundation. And you're checking off all the boxes, but you're just not getting the movement and nothing's really happening. And adding in a GLP-1 is what I've noticed that's changed myself and then the women in my community. And then from there, I've introduced other peptides. I really believe that peptides, which I don't know, Jen wants me to talk to me about it, but I have to, I feel like I need to say it. But the peptides that I really feel that everyone talks about peptides as being, I used to always consider myself like a biohacker. I like took great pride in being a biohacker. But I started realizing in this time of my life, like my body didn't need to be hacked. My body needed to be supported. And with using peptides, it actually goes in and is actually supporting the body. So it's not hacking any system. So our body like makes GLPs, our body makes BPC 157, it makes NAD. It's just going into those receptors and actually like fine tuning, like taking your car and fine tune your car and you get in and it runs like a totally different car. That's how I've looked at this. And so it is about the health span of your life and feeling vibrant. And so that's where adding in these different, stacking these different peptides as I've gone along. I feel like kind of like crack the code into like everyone talks about, the anti-aging part. And that's where I feel like I love being 56. I love the wisdom that I have. I would not want to go back to being in my 30s, but I want to feel like vibrant and good. And that's one thing that I will say that having peptides and adding that as a tool has been the biggest game changer for me.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I feel the same way too. And I think I do think it's important to note, peptides are not um they're not, what's the word that I'm looking for? They're not like a magic, it's just like HRT, right? A lot of you are familiar with it. It's not a magic pill that if you're not doing the other foundational work, they're not going to work as well, right? So it's important. I always call it the spokes of the Meno wheel, right? Or the different tools in your Meno toolbox. You want to make sure you're addressing all of them to get the best results. But I know a lot of women, and probably many of you here, feel like you are doing. Like, how many of you feel like, oh my gosh, I am doing the things. I am lifting the weights. I am, getting my protein and or tracking my macros. And, I am prioritizing my sleep and I'm still struggling. So, and like Leanne was saying, like specifically about inflammation, that struggle bus can look like puffiness, like all over puffiness that you have in your body, which can be partly due to insulin resistance. If you're waking up a lot in the middle of the night, that can also be from insulin resistance, which, doing this can also help with. Maybe you're dealing with a lot of brain fog and you're on HRT and you're exercising and you're doing all the things, but you're still dealing with brain fog. And maybe you're still feeling very fatigued or you've got sugar cravings. You're dealing with joint pain. Like I said, your labs are creeping up. Like if your doctor's doing, running any kind of inflammation marker tests on you, like your A1C that Leanne was talking about. If they're checking your fasting insulin and you're noticing those numbers go up, this can all be due to inflammation. And for so many women, they're doing everything, but they're finding that they need just that extra support for their body. And microdosing has done that for them. So yes, for me too. I mean, I thought I was doing pretty well. And then I started to see all of the data that was coming out about the long-term longevity effects for microdosing, which that's not even the topic of today's call. I mean, I don't want to keep us on here for 8 hours, but we literally could be on here for 8 hours talking about all the different peptides and all the different things that they can do. And even just microdosing, what it can do for you. For me, the driver for me was I wanted to use it for the long-term longevity benefits. I didn't necessarily have high A1C, but after I started taking it, I had an appointment with my functional doctor who manages my HRT, and he was like, I've literally never seen inflammation markers this low before. Like, this is amazing. So that made me feel really good. Um, anyway, okay. So, and then we talked a little bit about some of the labs that you can ask your doctor to run if you do want to check your inflammation levels. We talked about the HSCRP, the A1C, the fasting insulin, fasting glucose. It might be affecting your triglycerides. You may notice that those are going up. Somebody talked about their cholesterol. That's another one that can go up. And just remember, like, and I know, listen, the community that we have here, like, I know the people that follow Leanne for advice, the people that follow me for advice, we're typically, you guys are pretty well educated, much more educated than I think the average person. So it's not going to be a surprise when you hear normal doesn't mean optimal. So if you're getting those tests and your doctor's telling you, oh, your cholesterol is normal, that doesn't mean optimal, right? Make sure you're advocating for yourself. Okay. All right.
Can I
So,
throw one thing in with that cholesterol part before I
yeah.
forget? Is just so you know, I've been doing testing for so long, and a lot of these, it is very normal for us menopausal women to have high LDL. So just so you know, that's part of as your hormones are declining. So it is very normal. I have had so many women come to me in my practice that are like, doctors are trying to put them on statin because of high LDL. Please get a second opinion from that, but just know that it is a very normal to have higher LDL when you are in menopause. And it's not HDL. It's like a really like when we get like the red meats and that we're eating, it's so great for our body to have a little bit of a higher raised HDL. The one thing that's to make sure that you want to really look at is the triglycerides part. That's where you'll notice that is the inflammation, a lot that's going on in your body. And so really kind of like concentrating on that. But I just want to tell people it's like one thing I always try to get to educate you on that part. So when you go and we're talking to you about getting all these testing done, to really do look at your to know that LDL could definitely be elevated, and it's not like a reason for no, I'm not giving you medical advice, but to jump on like a statin for higher LDL. It's very normal. And I'll add one thing that I do recommend people to get tested that a lot of doctors don't test. Most doctors just test for your TSH. And that this is part of the inflammation and that's going on in the body. That's super important. But also you want to make sure they're testing your free T3, your free T4. And it's really good to get TPO numbers because we can see how the immune system is actually working within the thyroid. But I wanted to mention that because it's something that's very overlooked for most doctors. I looked at my daughter is having a baby and she's pregnant and the midwife didn't even run any of that. And I was like, why didn't she run any of that? Because they only run TSH and they'll run T4. And that's just where they can medicate you because that's how you medicate for Synthroid. So just FYI on that because that will tell a lot. If those things aren't fixed, then it's really hard to also for inflammation to reduce that in the body.
Yeah. So good. Thank you. You're
Yep.
getting a little bit of free information over here from Leanne. Like I said, not medical advice, but she is very experienced in this space and has been working with midlife women and has had a doctor on her staff for a long time. So, okay, I do want to make sure that we leave some time to answer any specific questions that you all have. So, feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask, anything specific about what's going on with you, if you're comfortable sharing it and you'd like a little bit of, again, not medical advice, but just what Leanne has seen or what I have seen. You can also feel free to drop any of your questions in the comments. While you guys are doing that, I'm going to put a link with instructions in here. So many of you know, you've followed me. I used to get all of my peptides through my functional HRT doctor. He was actually the first one who recommended to me that I start on peptides. So I ordered through him and it was through a compounding pharmacy, but they did not come. I had to reconstitute them myself, which I'm not a big fan of. I think it leaves you open for error, and peptides are they're unstable, and if you don't constitute them exactly right, it will affect the efficacy and the potency of them. So I know Leanne and I typically prefer to have our peptides come already constituted, which means they're already liquid. You just, put in the syringe and you use them. So I switched over, and Leanne did as well, to getting all of our peptides from LEMD, which is if you don't know, it's a longevity, regenerative telehealth company. And they are one of the few that offers not just GLPs. GLPs are pretty easy to get now, but all the other peptides that come through a doctor with a doctor's oversight. It's actually prescribed to you, and then it's compounded in a legit 503A pharmacy. So that has the highest level of oversight. It's all purity tested. It's all potency tested. And the pharmacy that Ellie partners with exclusively is a very, very well respected pharmacy in the industry. So I'm just going to put in here the link if you do want to look at the peptides. The nice thing about Ellie is they have a lot of education information. So even if you just wanted to go on there to learn more about microdosing or learn more about some of the other peptides, I'm going to share it with you here in the comments. Um, there we go. Okay. All right, we have some questions. Oh, this is a good one because Leanne, you can speak directly. Laura
I
said
saw
endo,
that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
about endo. So yeah, Leanne, talk about that.
Yeah, so I'm an endo survivor. I've had like four laparoscopic surgeries with it. I just actually was talking to my stories about it today. So one of the great things of to reduce that inflammation is if I wish I had this back then before all this is microdosing a GLP-1 GIP is what I would personally do if I was still in that situation. And also BPC 157 with TB 500 would be my combo. And then you can throw in, if you wanted to, thymosin alpha 1. But that's where it's going to really help with that inflammation that's going on with the body. It's going to help also where I would throw in, that's what I'm saying, the BPC 157, TB 500 to break up the scar tissue. That's what we deal with a lot of with endometriosis. So we want to break up that scar tissue and really help with that healing. And so that's where that BPC 157, TB 500 comes in. A lot of times when you're dealing with endo too, you can have some gut issues also. So that's where I would bring that in too. So that would be mine. If I was going back, I wish that my doctor would have offered me was that my doctor offered me progestin. And that was about it in surgery, and then if you get surgery and then it comes back and you get another surgery and all of that, then fertility all comes into play. But yes, that would be my go-to for that. And I don't know if I saw another question too.
Yeah, somebody also was saying when you were talking about LDL, they were saying ApoB is also a good marker to watch for cardiovascular risk, which is true. And I completely forgot to touch on that.
Yeah, sometimes and your doctor will say like, well, this doesn't your insurance is going to charge you more money. Or Quest will come back and say it, and you're just like, okay, it's I think it's like $80 more or something like that. But it's a great test.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let me
That's why
see.
a lot of doctors don't suggest it because of the insurance reasons.
Okay. I know there were some other questions here. Let me scroll down. Okay, so
Experiencing
yeah.
stiffness, fingers and hands, feet, knees, almost like joint pain with symptoms improving after movement. Not sure how to deal with. Anyone's familiar with this? According to my doctor, procedure estrogen. Yes. So if you're not producing estrogen, that would be one thing you definitely want to. So that is if you so you'll hear so I back in the day I used to always women were always complaining about like, oh my gosh, my shoulder hurts, and they would have, shoulder pain and joint pain. A lot of that is from you not having the good estradiol in your body. And so that's one thing is just to go ahead and replenish with estradiol. And then I think you would be a perfect candidate too. You can add in, if it was me, I would go in with estradiol and then I would do BPC 157, TB 500. If you wanted to go like for a full, like the big bam, you could do the Clo. Clo is going to give you the biggest bang because that's going to be BPC 157, TB 500, and GHKCU with KPV. And KPV can help a lot with the inflammation that's going on in the body, your immune system. And then you've got the GHKCU, which is not just for your face, your skin, your hair, and nails. It also helps with that collagen production, can help with the pain. And then BPC and TB500 to go in there to really help recover and heal. So that would be my thing. But you definitely having replenishing your body with estrogen and hormones is just so important. It's so important. And it's not something that you need to be scared about. Like they have now come out and and they've debunked all of that. And I'm more scared of me not having the right amount of estradiol in my body to keep myself vibrant and to feel good. I can tell when my estradiol numbers start to decline. Our body gives us signs all the time. We just have to be aware and understand what those signs mean. If I know if I start feeling hot at night, I'm like, oh, all right, my estradiol needs to be adjusted. If I start noticing that I have pain in my shoulder or my knees, I'm like, okay, that's something to look at. So really just starting to look at those signs and see, but that's where I would start off with if it was me.
Yeah. And you can message me, Elvia. I hope I'm saying your name right. We met. I actually know her. We met in Grand Cayman. And so if you want to message me separately, I can give you a little bit more information about what Leanne was saying specifically. So, okay. Somebody else asked what would help with bloating and gut issues.
I would go with that one. If it was peptide wise, I would definitely, well, first of all, you want to look and make sure that you want to be eating whole foods. There's a lot of like hidden, even like protein powders. You have to be super particular where you're getting your protein powders for bars. Like go to a very whole food based diet so you can really look and see kind of like narrowing it down what's bothering you, causing the bloating. But one of the things that is very common us in midlife, we don't produce enough the same amount of digestive enzymes, and we also start developing leaky gut. So as we age, we don't have those digestive enzymes much. Our gut junctions should be like super tight. So if you poured water in my hands would cup it to be able to hold it. When those start to actually loosen, that's when our body starts getting exposed to our immune system. And so putting in, I would go for the B. If it was me, and I had that, which I did do this myself, BPC 157, TB500 capsules would be a great way to get started.
Yep, I'm a big fan. Big fan. I have a lot of women who use Ellie and they have had incredible results for their gut health
Mhm.
using the capsules. And then just as an aside, BPC 157 TB500 is also available as an injectable. And that's real, that also will help with gut health, but that's also great if you have any kind of issues with joint pain. So a lot of you have probably heard me tell this story. I had issues chronically with my left shoulder, and then I had an injury, like in the gym, I think is where it happened, to my right shoulder. This was, oh my gosh, like a year and a half, 2 years, I don't know, I forget. It was right before I moved to Boston. So it was, yeah, so it was like, I guess it was like a year ago. And I did all the things to try to heal it, right? I was like resting it. I was going to the physical therapist. I went to a chiropractor. I was doing electro stim, red light therapy, all the things. Wasn't getting better. So I finally broke down and went to the orthopedic doctor, and he did a physical exam, and he was like, Jen, I think it's a 50-50 chance that you have a tear and you're going to need surgery. So I want you to get an MRI. So we moved to Boston for a few months. So I was like, I'll just wait and get the MRI when I get home. Well, in the meantime, I started injecting BPC 157 TB500. I personally chose to inject it directly into my shoulder. Some doctors and practitioners will tell you you don't need to do that. It's systemic, it knows where to go in the body. That's what I chose to do. Other practitioners will tell you, yeah, get it, put it in closer. It has, not as far to travel. Anyway, within one cycle of doing it, so it was 8 weeks, I would say it was about 75% better. And then I did a second cycle, and the difference was night and day. Both of my shoulders were completely pain-free. I had all my entire range of motion back. Like I was at the gym in Boston trying to do my workouts. I couldn't even, like, I couldn't hang. I couldn't do pull-ups because my arms wouldn't go any higher than this because of the pain that I was having. And now I'm like, oh, I'm doing all the things. So, my personal experience with the injectable BPC 157 has been TB500 has been fabulous. Which, by the way, there's like exciting stuff going on right now with the FDA. We won't go into all of it right now, but there is a committee that is going to be making recommendations to the FDA, and one of the peptides that they voted on today was BPC 157, and they're basically recommending that it go back on the list, which would mean that it would be safe and legitimate. It's so exciting for compounding pharmacies to be compounding. So, okay, let's get to some of these other questions. We'll do a few more of these. Okay, we did that one. Okay, my GI is always a disaster. I'm on HRT, and that's been hard to dial in, but I'm in a good place now. I did microdose a GLP-1 GIP earlier in the year to see if it would help. When trying to get my HRT dialed in, I came off in April, and my tummy has slowly gone back to being a mess. I also have thyroid dysfunction, and that's been hard to get leveled out too. I do think the microdose helped. This conversation is making me believe I need to go back on. Okay. Did you ever, Layla, did you ever try the oral BPC 157 TB 500 to see if that helped with your gut as well?
I did use it, but after using it for a while, it ended up making things really worse with my stomach.
Okay.
I probably was on it for 6 months,
Mhm.
and that came off of having a situation where I had a bad case of diverticulitis and I was in the hospital. So I had a little micro tear with it, so that was not fun. So I took that for about 6 months after, but then I started having some massive issues being on the oral with my stomach when it came to like pain and discomfort. Movements were happening like it was painful and but weird. So as soon as I came off of it, I realized real quick, oh, that was it, definitely it. So I've been a little hesitant to go back on an oral
Yep.
because I'm not sure that that would be the best thing to do, but it's been a nightmare. I recently had a CT scan to be sure I didn't have another tear or something going on, and it showed everything was fine except there was constipation there. Well, it's either one way or the other, always,
Right.
always.
Yeah.
And every time I start having pain or problems, they want to send me for a CT scan, and I'm like, that's not the problem. I really do feel like I've questioned lately if maybe I have SIBO, but my GI doctor is not in favor of testing for that. All they care about is just to be sure that there's no constipation. And
Yeah.
so I've now reached out to my hormone specialist for maybe see if they'll do the SIBO test. If
Yeah.
not, I mean, I can do it myself.
Yeah.
Just need to find someone to treat it.
Yeah.
So I do think I was on tirzepatide, and I do think it helped. And I feel like inflammation is probably a big part of my problem.
Yeah. Yep.
So
And you
I would
anyway,
might,
do that and add in thymosin alpha 1.
say that again.
I would do go back on your GLP-1 and then add in thymosin alpha 1 and do that for like do the thymosin alpha 1 for at least like 60 to 90 days.
Okay.
That's going to help with that immune system that seems to kind of be triggering, and you're having histamine reactions. So I would go to that thymosin alpha 1 along with the GLP.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're
all
welcome.
right. Let's see. Somebody said I'm in my mid 60s, went to my OBGYN to start HRT. They said I can't do estrogen replacement because of my age and because I've had too many years with high LDL and triglycerides. Welcome to the world of standard healthcare.
Yeah.
I would be looking for a new doctor if I were you.
Yeah.
Um,
I always tell people, remember, we are the ones that are hiring. They are not hiring us. We pay them. So we are the ones that can choose to fire.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think what's important is do the benefits outweigh the potential risks. It's not to say that there isn't, possibly some kind of risk, but that the whole concept of, once you're 60, you have to be off HRT has been debunked by most, by most doctors that are actually practicing and successfully treating women over 60 with HRT in their practice. Okay, somebody's asking about the half-life of BPC 157. I can't see this because there's like a little thing in front of it. It says something like the BPC has a half-life of, I can't read what that says. How many hours? Can you see
12
that?
hours.
And
12,
if,
yeah, BBC has a half-life of 12 hours. If it's combined with TB 500, which has a half-life of several days, how do you ensure you're getting the right dosage of each? That's where the doctor and having a company that you're using, a telehealth company that knows to have the right protocol and the right combination goes into play. So this is what they specialize in. I will tell you that the combination of the BPC 157 with the TB 500, it's combined together. So it's in one vial. So they've already done all that for you. This is not with Ellie, where Jen and I both get all of our peptides and where we both point people in the right direction with that, being physician, being medically supervised is everything's already reconstituted. You don't think about that. You just fill out your medical review. And then the doctor is going to actually prescribe based upon your medical review, the right protocol then for you with that. So you're gonna get the exact protocol of what you need with the TB500, with the BPC 157 TB500, how many days to use, how many units to in each syringe.
okay, we'll do a few more minutes of questions. I do want to be respectful of everybody's time and not run too long. And I do want to do that giveaway too. Okay, so we answered that one. Somebody's saying she's been on GLP-1 GIP for a little over a year, feels so much better, but the coach she was working with, not anymore, got weird about me being on it too long. Would love to hear your opinions. I mean, the experts that are in the circle that we're in have basically will say that it's not something that you need to come off of. Leanne, feel free to.
I mean, I've been on it for years and I get my blood work. I run my blood work all the time. I run everything, but I've been on it for 3 years. I have a client and she's an RN and she's been on it for, I think, like now it's been 5 years and she'll not come off of it. I'm using it as preventative. I'm not looking for any weight loss with it, but I am using the right dosing for preventative.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I mean, sometimes people will say like, "Oh, pop off it for like a week or two to let your receptors reset," but like a lot of people don't do that at all. Again, not medical advice, just what we're seeing works well for people in our community. Okay. Um, Okay, somebody was saying my internist avoids HRT, finally entertained my concerns, immediately prescribed progesterone and estradiol, but refuses to offer testosterone, won't do labs as a baseline. I'm in search of a new doctor, limited choices for functional practitioners, so I'm looking for telehealth. Um, and then somebody said they had a good experience with MIDI. I've heard mixed reviews about MIDI and their HRT. I've never used them personally. Ellie MD did just start offering HRT. I will say it's in the very early stages. So I would Leanne, you're on mute. I don't know if you're trying to talk to us. Um, I would probably wait until they have a few more offerings for HRT with Ellie. But Leanne, do you know anyone who's used MIDI or have any other suggestions for telehealth?
I have, sorry, my daughter was asking me a
Oh, that's
question.
okay.
So I have had a lot of people come to me with mini. Though the one thing is I don't think like there is more about optimization, put it that way. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like one for all kind of thing. And the one thing is I know with Ellie is we will be getting testosterone, and I think all three need to be looked at. And that's the reason we'll have the diagnostic testing. So to be able to look at that, to be able to prescribe all three. I know Minnie's like iffy on that too, on testosterone. It just matters what state you're in, how they feel. But yeah, I've had a lot of people actually that have done with Minnie. But I mean, to me, this is what I'm going to look at. I think it's better to go through if that's where you feel and you're like, hey, that's what I can actually go through and get on hormones and get on something, and then you not being on anything and suffering through this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it also depends to like what you're looking for, what you need. Some people are fine with just here's a patch and an oral progesterone. um, prescription for whatever, 200 milligrams. I was not that person. That didn't do it for me. I know Leanne was not that person either. We needed more individualized care than that. So I think it can be a good starting place, I guess is what I would say, which is kind of what you just said, Leanne. Um, Somebody said they had a good experience with Elevate MD. Somebody said the Heather Hirsch collaborative for HRT is amazing. I actually had Heather Hirsch on one of my um, lives, Instagram lives. Okay. Somebody's saying, can you explain the difference between tirzepatide and tesamorelin? And also, does tirzepatide affect your estradiol dosing?
Wait, where did wait, what was the question again? Sorry,
So
Jen.
I can answer the first one. So tirzepatide versus tesamorelin. So tirzepatide is a GLP-1. It's in that class. So that's going to help with all the things that we talked about, right? Inflammation, depending on your dosage, it can also help with weight loss. Tesamorelin is a different type of peptide. Tesamorelin is a peptide that helps increase your pulse of growth hormone. So tesamorelin is going to be used to help with muscle growth. I've done a couple cycles of tesamorelin, ipamorelin. Ellie has a couple options. Hold on, somebody, if you can mute yourself. So Ellie actually has a couple different options for different growth hormone peptides. They have tesamorelin combined with ipamorelin, which is what I used. It's the strongest one that they have. It helps with muscle growth. It also helps with sleep. My functional HRT doctor actually recommended it to me. It was one of the first peptides I ever used. And then it also is FDA approved to help with the reduction of visceral fat. So those three things would be the big ones. If you are looking for help with those, you might want to be looking at tesamorelin or one of the other options. And then somebody asked about where is it? It was something about if being on tirzepatide affects your estradiol levels. That was the basic question.
No, it actually can help.
Yep.
So I had people that we were like, we're doing everything, couldn't really get their levels up. Actually getting someone out of the insulin, usually they're dealing with insulin resistance too. Getting them out of that, reducing the inflammation really helps with that estradiol.
Yep. Yeah, there was a study that talked about that. Like, and I've
Mm.
seen a lot of, the big hormone doctors, like Heather Hirsch and Kelly Casperson and even Mary Claire Haver talking about how there was a study that showed, it was a small study, but it showed that women who were using both a GLP-1 and HRT, that they had better results on both sides, really.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I think we're going to wrap up questions here because we're getting close to 9 o'clock and I feel like we covered most of them anyway. But if there was a question that you did not get to answer, feel free to shoot me a DM on Instagram or shoot me an email, whatever. All right, we're gonna pick the winner. Like I said, I'm giving away. I'm sorry if you're a dude because you probably don't need any makeup. So if you're a dude on here, you'll have to gift this to a beautiful lady in your life. Okay. So I'm gonna basically I had my assistant pull a name and she just texted that to me. So the winner of the makeup is Jen Swift. Jen, are you still on here? Yes, I see you. All right, Jen, you are going to message me. Shoot me a message, Jen Swift, and I will get you set up with your free makeup. Okay. So, did you guys enjoy this? Like give me an emoji. Was this helpful? Did you guys think this was worth your time tonight? Um okay, good. Okay, good. Lots of good feedback because I get it. Like it's a sacrifice for you to be away from your family or whatever. Leanne, you're sacrificing, your grandbabies are visiting. We appreciate you being on here so much to help all of these incredible women. We're going to do these again, okay? I want to make this a regular
Yeah.
series. We're going to talk about different topics each time. And so if you have suggestions for topics, shoot me a message. I'd love to hear from you. We want to give you what you want to learn more about. So, okay, everybody, thank you. And the recording will be sent out. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.